D-Base, Vingen, Donick. It is a Thursday morning. Another hot one.
Woo, woo.
Final day of July. And then August. Yep. Is that my computer? Yes. Oh,
That's
no.
yours, Willie?
No, that's my phone. What am I doing?
Yeah, Willie, what's going on here, man?
I'm breaking down. I'm breaking down.
Just
Early
a bunch of
breaking.
old farts, in
That
their
would be a false
technology.
start. A false start.
Us old guys in this studio don't know how to work our phone.
Yeah. It's
Hint,
called
Willie.
mute. It's called mute. Mute your phone.
Yes, Willie, it is hot as double socks and a pair of Converse high tops in the summertime. That's how hot it is.
Yeah.
That's pretty hot.
That is pretty hot. For those who had to wear double socks and some Converse, Willie, you know about those
Oh, yeah.
Converse had no arch support
None.
whatsoever.
So you got to have two pairs of
Yeah,
socks.
you got to have double socks on.
Or
And
the
if you-
worst for me is I never wore ankle braces.
Uh-huh.
When I got to Vanderbilt, you had to wear ankle braces or tape, either
Oh.
or. And either way, man, that
Oh,
was
your feet was-
uncomfortable.
oh, yeah.
And your feet sweat like
You had to
would
get
not
used to
believe.
it. Had
Yeah,
to get
you
used
had
to it.
get
So
used
that's
to
how hot it is, people. Not quite
It's
as
hot.
funky, but hot.
it. And so we're moving into August. As Jonathan Hutton put it yesterday, it's like the worst month. You're so excited for football season, but you really have a whole month before you actually get to see real games. You have the preseason games. But, of course, we are all over. We already have a text on our text line. Get it together, Willie. Okay, I got it. I got you.
That's like having
Message
that,
received.
That's like having that, when you're a teenager. I didn't experience this because I didn't have a car as a teenager, but I know my kids experienced this, and I'm sure yours has as well, Willie. When they're a teenager and you buy that car and they can't quite drive it yet, but they're watching it like, man, I can't wait to drive that thing by myself. It's like, that's how it is, man.
That's how it
That's
is.
It's like,
Yeah.
That's how football season is. It's so far away, but we can see it. It's like, oh, I wish it would start right now.
Yes.
Do you really wish it would start right now? Because maybe, just maybe, the Titans ain't going to look like a team that is going to win many football games if it started today. Remember, Joe asked the question, hey, the team you feel today, right now, can they win the Super Bowl? And they danced around the question.
Yeah.
So if the season started right now, for all those that want the season, they can see it, taste it, feel it. Just know, if it did start today, I'm not sure our Tennessee Titans would be ready to win any football game. So,
That is quite true. In fact, we are going to test the mettle, I think, of all the Titans fans today in the first hour, because we're going to revisit something that we talked about a lot leading up to the draft and then the decision to draft Cam Ward. And we're not here to say the decision is right or wrong, but we're going to sort of lay it out because it is going to be a question going forward. There is so much riding, and it's not Cam Ward's fault. It's not Cam Ward putting this on himself. This is what the organization chose to do. And as a result, there is so much riding on Cam Ward. We're going to go through it because some of the things we talked about leading up to the draft are worth revisiting now. There's a little lull. There's no media availability for the Titans today. They'll be back on the field tomorrow. We'll be checking that out and have a great Friday show for you. Also, if you missed it, John Robinson had a long sit down with Chase and Big Joe. And we are putting together some of the highlights of that as we speak. And during our noon hour, you are going to want to hear some of what John Robinson said. There are some areas he couldn't get into, contractually, all of that stuff. But there's plenty there to chew on. And we will talk about it during the noon hour. And Joe Rexroad is going to join us at 1 o'clock. We'll talk a little Titans with him and also what's going on over in Knoxville as they start their practice with the Boo Carter situation, how they're handling that part of it. Joe will have great insight for us. Also, as we get started, the trade deadline in Major League Baseball is later today. And so if you're a baseball fan, we're not going to break down every trade for you. Don't worry about that. Especially if you're not a baseball fan. But if you are a baseball fan, if you're a fantasy baseball player, man, there are some big ones that have just happened since we turned the page to today. Yesterday, they were big ones.
Mhm.
Today, the Padres looked like they were about to acquire one of the biggest flamethrowers in the game, Mason Miller, maybe the best pitcher that nobody knows about because he pitches for the Athletics in Sacramento at a minor league ballpark. But this is a guy that has been pretty amazing in terms of his velocity. He averages 101 miles per hour on his fastball. So he's a difference maker. He's only 26 years old. It looks like the Padres are going to acquire him from the A's. And the Padres already have an incredible bullpen. So the Mets acquired some relief pitchers yesterday. The Phillies picked up a closer from the Twins, Duran, yesterday. So the arms race, literally the arms in the National League, they are loading up the bullpens because it's hard to find enough starting pitchers these days that go past 5 innings. So you need a ton. There's no way you can have enough relief pitchers. So that is going down. And one of the biggest starting pitchers is changing addresses. The Guardians have traded Shane Bieber to the Blue Jays. So the Blue Jays also in a go-for-it mode. They are leading the American League East. It's been a while since they've been this good. Yankees, Red Sox usually rule the roost there. The Rays have been really good. Orioles have had their run the last couple of years. And the Blue Jays are looking for a big opportunity. They have traded for Mr. Bieber, Shane Bieber, not to be confused with Biebs, Justin Bieber.
I was about to say, they traded for Justin Bieber, man. Oh, my God.
They look a little different.
They're a little. Justin Bieber, I think, has been clocked at something like 73 miles an hour with his
something like that.
Maybe in his
also
car.
think he prefers hockey over baseball.
He's more of a, but you know what? He is Canadian. I wonder if he is a fan of the Blue Jays. Like that's the only Canadian team these days. They used to have the Expos, so I wonder if Justin Bieber has tweeted about Shane Bieber. I'll bet there's a good bet that will happen before the day is over. That could be an over under.
They'll definitely meet. Yes. Maybe, hopefully.
They might. All right, so we'll keep an eye on the trade deadline. There could be some more bombshells with that. It's a light day. There's not a lot of games going on, so we'll keep an eye on it. But one thing I did want to point out, Derek, as we start our conversation about Cam Ward and where he is now, I think we're all locked in now every day on the daily progress of this kid. And it's probably not fair. And he's going to have to get used to the fact that every move he makes is scrutinized. He's in a fishbowl. And if you look back, his career at Miami, even though he was a Heisman Trophy kind of guy and was getting that type of attention, I don't think he was playing for a fan base that picks apart every throw. He certainly wasn't at Washington State or Immaculate, right? We know that. Or Incarnate, I'm sorry, not Immaculate, Incarnate Word. Making up schools. Yeah. There's probably an Immaculate school somewhere.
Incarnate Word. There we go.
It's the fourth school he was at. He started there before he went to Incarnate Word. Something called Immaculate. But you see what I'm saying? Like when you play for Tennessee or you play for Ohio State or Alabama, you get this type of under the microscope stuff. But I don't think he had that in college. And this is just another thing he's going to have to shoulder is I think, his stats are out there, right? We know that you and I don't think that this means a whole lot in the grand scheme, but everybody in Nashville who cares about the Titans knows that he's completed 56%. He's thrown X interceptions, all of this stuff.
Yeah. And we've discussed this before, and we talked about the JJ Watt comment, that listen, you can't look at practice and try to sort of compare it to a game. Practice is just that, practice. Now, do you want your guy going, 7 for 7 or 12 for 12? Yeah, they can script that so that can more than likely happen, but that's not what you want to happen. What you want to do is put him in the most strenuous positions you can possibly put him in. You could put him, it's almost sort of like a stress test. And good thing you brought up this, because earlier on Big Joe and Chasing Big Joe, John Robinson talked about, the stresses that are on a rookie quarterback. And, you just don't understand everything that they have to go through, meaning just the average fan. And sometimes even those that claim to know or do know some things. That position is unique like no other. And it's almost I want to set you up to fail in practice to see how you handle things and how you handle the stresses and how you can problem solve, because that's essentially what you're doing as a quarterback. You're problem solving as you're backpedaling. And the minute you take the ball from the center, you are problem solving now. And what do I mean by that? Well, you're trying to solve this. What is the defense doing to us? And how do we proceed down the field? How do we get a big play, or how do we advance down the field? Because the problem is the defense and what they're doing. So you're problem solving. And it takes a special player, period, to be able to problem solve in 2 seconds, because that's what you got to do. Just think, people, if somebody put you in front of, basically, I'm not going to go that far as saying you got your finger on the red button and they're saying, make a decision right now in 2 seconds. But in sort of reality, that's what it is for a quarterback. You're asking me to make a decision that is either going to hurt or help my team in a matter of 2 seconds.
Right.
And not a lot of guys can do that. So when a rookie quarterback struggles, just think that's what he has. That's what he's processing.
It's normal. He's going through the normal process of moving up to this level.
Yes.
And I guess my question for the day is, can he handle that scrutiny on top of the rigors of just learning how tough it is to play quarterback? So far, I think he's doing really well. And I'm not sure if he's the type of guy, because this is going to be important. I heard Peter Skoronsky yesterday with Chase and Big Joe. They were asking him about, the scrutiny and, people saying, well, Skoronsky, why is he playing guard? And he didn't grade out very well here, and he's not as good as he's supposed to be. They picked him with the 11th pick. He's supposed to be great. And he said, no offense to you guys, I don't listen to any of that stuff. And he sounded very confident, like he's not lying, even though we all kind of say, well, you're not listening? You're not listening? Somebody's
not listening.
Somebody's getting that back to you, But different people can file it away easier. The Maple Leafs, they would be an Ohio State or a University of Tennessee or University of Alabama type of fan base for hockey. Mitch Marner, he's out of there. He is a homegrown Toronto kid who played for the Maple Leafs, made big money, underachieved in the playoffs, and everybody says that knows him well. Elliot Friedman talked about this some on our show, that he had trouble filing that stuff away. The scrutiny that he was under, the pressure that you felt. And I do wonder if Cam Ward is the type that will feel that pressure or completely be able to put it aside. He doesn't have a lot of, sometimes there are players that have other people tweeting on their behalf, like defending them on their behalf on social media, whether it's, close friends or family members, all the above. Cam Ward doesn't seem like he's about that, at least so far, but this will be put to the test, I would say.
Yeah, it's going to be because it's almost, well, it's not. I mean, it is. The intense scrutiny has started. Whereas back in the day, it didn't start until the games. It really started when the games were played, whether they were preseason or regular season. That's when the scrutiny really started, because you understood, like, practice is for, and then a lot of times we were not so, the fan base was not so in touch with their team, meaning they didn't see every little thing that was going on unless you were out at practice. Now you don't have to be out at practice because you're reading the headlines.
Yes.
Quarterback went 2 for 8. Quarterback threw 3 interceptions.
And that's even worse for the fans to just see a clip. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's no nuance in it. At least not the title.
Yeah, no context.
No context. And then, because if you're there or if you're watching it, there is context to what the headline is. But I'm sure he understands it. He should have understood it when he got drafted first overall. And people, it was almost like okay, who's next?
I do wonder too if they would ever consider closing practice, or at least wondering, hey, are we better off just closing practice with the way that he is under the microscope right now? Because it's only going to get more scrutiny as you get closer to the season. When we come back, we'll talk more about the Cam Ward issues that dated going back before the draft and the decision. So I guess with so much conviction that he was the guy. We'll recap our interview with Louis Riddick. We'll go back through some of the things that we talked about before the draft on this decision and kind of ask, okay, did they make the right decision? Only time will tell. We're just getting started here on DVD. Remember, we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Stay tuned. We're coming back.
Happy Thursday, everyone. Derek Mason here. If you've been injured in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers for a free case evaluation. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible, or better yet, nothing at all. Law Tigers make sure you get the compensation you deserve and doesn't get paid until your case has been settled. They understand how much your bike gear is worth to you and will help you get it all repaired, or better yet, replace. Law Tigers is a resource the motorcycle community turns to when in need. So whether it's to support an event or if they see you broken down on the side of the road, with Law Tigers, you'll never ride alone. So call 1-800-LAW-TIGERS or visit lawtigers.com. That's Law Tigers, which is powered by Freeman and Fusen. And you can find them in Nashville at 2126 21st Ave South. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
I would have taken him. It would have been like, yo, you're going to have to give me all your picks. You're going to have to give me a Mike Ditka style, type draft, Paul, in order for me to move off of this. Because the kid is nothing but he's all football. He's no nonsense. He's an alpha, no leader. And he's got exquisite physical skills for the quarterback position. Is he Jaden? Is he Lamar in terms of running stop? No. But you know what? He don't need to be. Is he Patrick-esque in terms of the way he can run? Yeah, he is. He can run just enough. And you know what? In the playoffs, how many times have you seen Patrick Mahomes and you're sitting there going, damn, Patrick runs better than I thought. It may not look pretty all the time, but he sure is getting that ball down the field. And that's the same thing with Cam. And see, I just love the guy. I love the no nonsense guy. Because he is not about all that other crap, man. He is not. And he is not someone who will not be intimidated by anyone, vet or rookie, anyone. And the guys down there, I heard Jeffrey Simmons already talking about it. They're talking and chirping at him from one of the first times they got exposed to him. And he's chirping right back. And Callahan's talking about the fact that he's sitting there thinking, damn, does this guy even hear what I'm saying to him? Because he's over there chirping at these dudes. And he's a rookie. And he's playing quarterback. He's different. So, yeah, I can see why they fell in love with him. And I know down at that pro day, when he made that one big throw where he was rolling left on the sideline, I think Berganzi and them were standing over there, and he ripped the ball probably about 45, 50 yards in the air. I know I can picture that moment and them going, that's our dude. If they hadn't already thought that anyway. So, yeah, would you have been tempted? Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going to say this too. Well, look at the 2026 draft. Look who's coming out. Look at Lenora Sellers down in South Carolina, Drew Aller. Look at these guys. Carson Beck down in Miami again. Like, hey, man, you could just, Arch Manning may be coming out. You don't know how the hell those guys are going to be this year. You don't know how that's going to look. You don't know if you're even going to be in position to draft one of them. Take the one. If you believe it, do it. Mike believed it. I would have believed it too.
That's Louis Riddick from ESPN on our show. A passionate case for the Titans taking Cam Ward with the first pick in the draft. We all know that they did. But we're stopping today on July 31st to just remind everybody about what the choices were. Because they're all in on Cam Ward now. We know that. They fell in love with Cam Ward long before the draft. And they are going to sink or swim based on how he does. Mm-hmm. Not just this year, but for the next several years.
Moving forward.
We're broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership with the Buzz is always about great service. Remember, our phone and text line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. So let me just go back through Louis Riddick's answer, because this is one side of the argument. I think D-Mace still is in Louis's corner. He has felt this way from the start. And that last line he said, if you believe he's your guy, you take him. You take him. He said he would have been tempted to take the picks, but he says, I would have made the pick. He said it would have taken a Mike Ditka style deal. And the reference was years and years ago, Mike Ditka was the coach of the Saints, and he and the Saints
gave up every pick,
every single pick in a draft.
Who does that?
To get Ricky Williams. They traded their whole draft, which included their first round pick, who ended up being Champ Bailey, for Washington. That's who they made the deal with.
Yes.
Yeah. And Washington still didn't win any big games because of it, but neither did the Saints, I guess, while Ditka was there. So he said they made the decision, that's our dude. They fell in love with the person and the player. Now, I want to give the other side of the argument and just remind people, and we're going to go through this from time to time, of what they passed on. On the day after the draft, Paul Kuharsky had this. He reported this of what the official offer from the New York Giants was for the first pick, which presumably the Giants would have taken Cam Ward because they eventually took Jackson Dart. So you would only think that they were going to take Ward with the first pick. The Giants offered the third overall pick which they used to select Abdul Carter. They offered the 34th overall pick, so a high second-round pick, plus next year's first-round pick and next year's second-round pick. So that is enormous value that the Titans turned down and said, nope, Cam Ward's our guy. We've made up our mind.
Well, my whole thing has been and will continue to be whether this works out or not. If you felt he was the guy, you took him. And because my thing is, you knew you had the number 1 pick months prior to that. So you did whatever, turning of rocks, opening of doors, pulling back everything. You've done every possible thing you can do to make sure the guy that you're drafting, I'm not saying it's not there's no flaws in it, because there are, but you've done everything possible to make sure you vetted this thing to the utmost, to make sure that you are drafting a guy that fits your vision of a quarterback, leadership, everything. So if you did that, this is the new regime. I get it. Brinker's still the supreme lord of football, but I'm going to believe that Borgonzi and Callahan were in control of this. I'm going to believe that. Okay. I may be naive, but I'm going to believe that. So if they did all that work, if that is your guy, I get the picks, Willie. I get it. And everybody else understands the picks. I'm like Louis Riddick. If you think he's your guy, draft him.
Right. And we've already got a text on our text line, 615-737-1025. So I guess Cam's a bust after 2 practices. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just revisiting how much is riding on Cam Ward and how much pressure this kid's going to be under. And we would like to sort of revisit. Do you still feel good about this decision now? And we'll check back after he has a great preseason game, which I'm sure he will have. He's going to have some moments that people say, wow, that's why they drafted him with the first pick. At least I hope they will. I'm rooting for them I'm rooting for this kid to do well. I want to see the Titans do well, but I'm simply going back through the decision here because the article that I referenced going back years for draft philosophy. And it was the guy won a Pulitzer Prize in business.
And I told you can't be bringing guys like here on radio, man.
Their names are Thaler and Massey. This is an article of a study that was done.
They don't belong on airwaves.
They took about 20 years of drafts and they tried to pick through what are the mistakes people make. And a classic mistake over time that they found was the number 1 pick in the draft is actually the least valuable in the first round, according to the surplus value a team can create with each pick. In other words, what the Giants offered. Instead of 1 pick, they essentially would have gotten 3 extra picks.
4? Was it
3 extra picks plus the 3rd overall pick, instead, just moving down 2 spots. And they would have had, presumably, Abdul Carter. We're going to talk about Abdul Carter in a moment because it's very early in his tenure. But there are a couple things we found out since the draft about Carter. And then the overall philosophy that this study found was that when you trade down, in general, you get a much better return on investment because you get more tosses at the draft board. So that was their finding. But what happens is, and this is what they noted, and there's a long article about the psychology of this, and it really goes to all sports, is that our human instinct is actually bad. You almost should be more of a computer type. Take the emotions out of it. Because what happened with Cam Ward? They fell in love with the person and the player. They were like, this is our guy. This is our guy. And they thought that was more than all of these other picks.
Isn't that what they're supposed to do? Fall in love with them? But you have to.
But time has tested. This is what the study showed, that's a mistake. That's a mistake more often than not. It may not be a mistake here.
Okay.
But it's like you're at the craps table.
Mhm.
You're feeling it. All right, I need a 7. And I roll a 7.
Come on,
I'm
7
so
with your
smart.
shake yourself.
I'm
Pow!
so smart. But the analytics people, there's like, well, the studies show here that if you keep playing this game, you're going to lose, right? Like Vegas with the slot machines. You go into the Vegas, you hit the slots. Whoo-hoo, I'm hot. Let's go. I'm ahead. But time has showed with all these hotels and casinos they're building in Vegas, if you play the slot machines long enough, you're going to lose. You're going to lose.
Somebody's getting rich, and it ain't you.
Right. So there's just a lot. They have narrowed their pathway to success with one shot, and it's Ward. So they've got to roll the dice and hit on Ward. But the other way would give you a wider pathway, in my opinion, with all of that draft value.
But that doesn't take into account, because there are nuances to all of this, and I don't know, how nuanced the study was, or they just went straight analytical and just looked at it straight.
Well, they looked at every draft from, I forget the years, but 2004 to 2016 or something like that.
Football,
2000, I forget what the years were.
Football has changed a lot. I get it, but there's still nothing like, looking at a player and watching him long enough and saying, okay, that's my guy. Because I don't think back then they had all the information to really go in deep. They didn't have all the analytics to go in deep into a quarterback like they used to. So the failure rate was, if you passed up a deal like that, more than likely you were going to fail. But now, because of the analytics that he talks about, you make more of an informed decision.
Okay, that I'll buy that to a degree, but I still think there are certain things that are still very difficult to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like a recent guy like a Bryce Young, hasn't done great. He's not finished yet. There's Anthony Richardson. Like, there's still a lot of guys who I'm sure they had the same kind of thing. This is the guy. This is the guy we want to pick. And the percentages show, we did all of the studies of the first overall pick quarterbacks. It's all around the spectrum. You have Hall of Famers like John Elway, and you have complete busts like
Jamarcus
Russell. That's the same. That's the one I was thinking. And then everything in between, like Drew Bledsoe, pretty good. Vinny Testaverde, not bad.
Marcus Mariota was okay.
Well, he was second, right? So Jameis Winston was first.
Yes.
Jameis Winston, okay, not bad, but first overall.
Yes.
Baker Mayfield. See, these are all guys you may not have the guy. So for me, with the emotions out of it, it would have been an easy decision for me to take the picks from the Giants. But you heard Louis Riddick. He had the same kind of passion. He believes in Cam Ward. So that's what we're asking our listeners today is, how do you feel about this today? Because when we come back, we'll tell you how Abdul Qadir is doing, because this is what you would have if you're the Titans. What you've passed, you would have Abdul Qadir, and you would have an additional second-round pick in addition to Femi Odejo. So you'd have that player in camp right now. Plus, you would have, looking forward, the 2 picks from the Giants next year. Of course, you would have no quarterback, right? Brandon Allen, I guess, would be your quarterback. Maybe Will Levis would not have had the surgery.
Yes.
Or maybe you would have gone a different direction and gotten another Daniel Jones kind of guy. That's probably what you were looking at. And you would be sitting there rooting for the Giants to lose and saying, you know what? We might have a top 10 pick from the Giants, plus a top 10 second-round pick. That's what you passed on. So you better hope that Cam Ward is not just good, but really good. So that's what we're asking. 615-737-1025. You still feel good about this right now? We're coming back with more of DVD next. Don't forget, our coverage of Titans training camp is presented by Macero in 12 South, along with Parman Energy Group. That's Macero in 12 South and Parman Energy Group. Our Titans training camp coverage rolls on. We're talking about the decision to take Cam Ward. Where are they now? How are you feeling about it? If you're a Titans fan, 615-737-1025. Part of the equation, as we mentioned, they turned down a deal from the Giants. Forget about maybe what other teams might have been offering. We don't really know. We do know that the Jaguars made the big deal. They gave up a lot to get the second pick to take Travis Hunter. So that might have been on the table had the Titans really shopped around. But it sounded like they were on the record saying, we got our guy. Leading up to the draft, we didn't really do that. The other picks didn't matter, they said. We got Cam Ward. We got our quarterback. They could have had the third pick, Abdul Carter, the Giants' second-round pick this past year. So they would already have another player in the fold that they don't have right now, plus next year's first and second from the Giants. So let's check on Abdul Carter. What did we talk about a lot with Abdul Carter and the risks of drafting him? Number one, Derek.
Some of the risk.
Yeah. What were the issues? It was pretty obvious,
the
right?
foot. I think the foot was the biggest.
The foot and the shoulder.
Yeah,
right?
the foot and the
He had
shoulder.
injury issues.
Because there was, he's going to work out. And then he's going to run to, he's not going to work out. To, it's the shoulder. It was the foot because then it was the shoulder. So you kind of left everything sort of vague in a sense. There was this unknown, with people. And, the Giants, obviously, because they couldn't move up. And we don't really know I guess we do. If the Giants were going to take Cam Ward or were they going to still take Abdul Carter at the one spot? Because they end up taking him, third?
They got him third. Yeah.
So
I would assume they were going to get Ward if they were going to trade all that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But it also, I had another friend of mine when I was presenting this yesterday. It was Max Hurst, actually. He said, well, at least we know there's another team that thought that much of Cam Ward.
Yeah.
Right? In theory.
Yeah, but I think
the Titans weren't on the island thinking that Cam Ward could be the special number one that's worth all of those picks. And more.
I think there were probably teams that wanted to move, but they didn't want to invest that much to move up. Had the Titans given it to them, they would have drafted Cam Ward first overall. I do believe there were probably one or two other teams outside of the Giants, but the Giants the one that are getting the headlines because it was put out there what the Giants offered to move up to that number one spot, and the Titans were not willing. But listen, whether Abdul Carter works out for the Giants or not, it seems like and his learning curve is different from the quarterback's learning curve. So this is not apples to apples. But, if he goes out there and succeed, that doesn't mean the Titans made the wrong pick. They just need their quarterback to continue to develop and be their starter. And then you kind of go from there.
This is not meant to have the Titans looking back. They're looking ahead. They've made their decision. But for Sports Talk Radio, I think it's important to look at it. Abdul Carter has not had any issues being on the field with the shoulder or the foot. Not yet.
No.
Now, that still could rear itself, right? If he comes up with a bad foot in the next couple of weeks, everybody's going to say, aha. Say, hey, Willie, what are you talking? But so far, here's the headline from Giants camp. Of course, we know about camp. It's all about hope. It's all about hype. Early returns on Abdul Carter. He's going to be great. Everybody, he's the dude. He's the man. So the Giants are very happy with the way that's gone. Let's get to some phone calls on this. T-Mac is out in Murfreesboro. He's on our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. T-Mac.
Okay. I have a few points to make about this. Here's the first thing. The public census was that everyone knew that the Titans was going to take Cam Ward. The Giants knew that. That's the reason why they threw the house at the Titans, because if they knew all along they was going to take Abdul Carter, knowing that the public census was that the Titans was going to take Cam Ward, they would have just sat back and sat at that spot that they was at. But that's the reason why they threw the house at the Titans, because they wanted Cam Ward. So first of all, that goes to show you the value that they saw in Cam Ward. 2, this may be a hot take. I think if the Titans would have took all those picks, it might have set the franchise back even more. Because here's why. For one, we're looking at Will Levis' shoulder. He was going to get that. He needed to get that surgery. So we wouldn't have had a quarterback. Callahan would have got fired because we don't have a quarterback. So that would have set us back. And then we would have took one of these second-rate quarterbacks. And no disrespect to Will Levis or a Malik Willis, but we've seen taking quarterbacks in the second and third round. We would have took one of these Quinn Ewers or Jalen Miro type of guys, and we would have tried to see what they can bring, and we wouldn't even know that till this year, next year. So that would have set us back like 2-3 more years because we would be back into picking a quarterback spot again in about 2 to 3 more years because one of these second-rate quarterbacks wouldn't do it. And then I'll say this last thing. I think Cam Ward is the guy. I think they did make the right decision because here's why. Being that his interceptions are so frequent, once he figures it out, he's going to be good. If his interceptions were more spread out and sporadic, then we might have an issue. But basically what this lets us know is that this is something that he's trying to figure out, and we know that he has the mental makeup to figure it out. And once he figures it out, he's going to be good. So I hang up and listen.
All right, T-Mac, that's good. I mean, there's a lot of details. He's okay with the decision. I don't know that Will Levis would have been I think they knew about the shoulder. I think they would have figured out something at quarterback, but either way, it wouldn't have been about this year if you made that move to take the pick. So I'm just going to play the other side. The 34th pick, which was the pick that the Titans in theory would have gotten if they'd taken the deal, was used eventually by the Texans, who traded with the Giants for that pick and took Jaden Higgins. So what you would have Jaden Higgins is a wide receiver from Iowa State. So in theory, you could have one more young wide receiver in the fold if that's the direction you want. But there would be other players they could have used that for. So that we shouldn't overlook how valuable that second round pick could have been.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
What's the faster way to have the roster?
And that's the dilemma. And that's what, the caller was sort of explaining. Is it, because you got, and I said this before, you have 2 roads. You believe that both roads are good ones, but how do we get to our destination faster? Is it with trading away the pick, trading away the first overall, getting the picks and kind of building that way and hoping that you can manage the quarterback position for at least another year or possibly 2 to get your guy and he develops. You can do it that way. It may take a little longer, or you can do it by drafting your quarterback and developing them and hoping that, like CJ Stroud, like Jaden Daniels, even, Drake May had his successes. Even though his team wasn't successful, he played well within it. So when you have stuff like, you just got to make a decision. Do I take the quarterback and he get me there faster, or do I take sort of the long building route?
Yep, we're gonna be checking on this path.
Yeah,
we're gonna be checking on this path. We got a lot of people on the text line 615-737-1025. We'll continue this into the second hour. Let me get to Stan real quick on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Stan, what do you think?
Stan? Well, this is hello, are you there?
Yep, yes. We got you.
This is the very unfair early analysis, but he is the number 1 overall pick, so I don't think it's too unfair. But I went back and looked at the Washington Press early in Jaden Daniels' training camp career, just kind of reading what they were saying about him. And, how many interceptions did he throw? What was the team saying about him? How is he absorbing the offense? Blah, blah, blah. So comparing the two may be unfair, but Jaden Daniels was the 3rd overall pick, I believe. Having said all that, absolutely the Titans made a mistake and should have aggregated all those picks and rolled the dice on the quarterback and said, you know what, we don't have a legitimate number 1 quarterback this year. He's not number 1. He's not as good as Jaden Daniels. should not have done it. Should have gotten more inventory on better players, plural. And so that's my early unfair assessment. Thank you.
Okay, Sam, thanks. Unfair is really not, because we're only, this is just a marker along the path, right? We're just looking at both paths, and we'll continue to do this. And I just think one path is more narrow than the other in how you get to success, which is building a contender. So we have a lot of people that want to weigh in on this, because this was a huge decision that they made that I really thought was downplayed and not really challenged at the time. It was kind of just taken as okay, you got your quarterback. Well, we'll find out if they have the quarterback, and they may well have the quarterback. But I'm looking at the alternatives and how it's playing out. 615-737-1025. We'll continue on with this. Also, during the 12 o'clock hour, we're going to play you some excerpts from John Robinson's conversation with Chase and Big Joe. Really good stuff. The former GM for the Titans. And we'll look at another big decision that the organization made. That was the trade of A.J. Brown. So John Robinson had some interesting insights on that. Stay tuned. Hour number 2 of DVD is coming up. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick here on this Thursday, high noon. A hot noon here in Nashville. Adam Vingan finishing up his vacation. He will be back with us on Monday. Willie Donick, Derek Mason here with you. We're broadcasting for the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We're just checking on this last day of July now that training camp is in a little bit of a lull, going back on the big decision that the Titans passed on to take Cam Ward. We are not saying the verdict is in. Cam Ward is the right choice or Cam Ward is the wrong choice. We're simply asking, how do you feel about it right now? And just reminding everybody what it is that they passed on, which was, according to Paul Kuharsky, the following on draft day. The 3rd overall pick, moving down 2 spots. Presumably, you could have taken Abdul Carter. That's who the Giants used. The 34th overall pick this past year, earlier this summer, you would have another player on your team right now, a 2nd-round pick. Could have been a wide receiver. Could have been another edge rusher. Could have, whatever you want to do with that. Plus, next year's 1st-round pick of the Giants. Are the Giants going to be good this year? How high could that pick be? And the Giants' 2nd-round pick next year. That's what they passed on to take Cam Ward. But they had the conviction. They fell in love with Cam Ward. They said, this is our guy. Louis Riddick says, thumbs up. It would have taken a lot more for him to do it. He said he would have paused, but he would have made the pick for Cam Ward. D-Mace, you're still in that camp.
I'm still in the camp.
You're still in the camp for Cam.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm locked down. I'm good.
You're good.
I put cement around the edges, so you can't pull it up.
Cement.
Yeah,
okay.
Cement.
So it's
I say cement, you say cement.
Potato. Yeah. So
yeah, I'm dug in, Willie.
So we got a lot of reaction to this. We have one guy on our text line, driven by Wilson County.
Oh my goodness. I'm laughing at David because
that's
I'm from the north, so I say cement. I guess, but Willie's from sort of kind of the north too, in a sense.
Listen,
but I say cement.
You Midwesterners, man, you just need to.
Y'all pronounce it cement.
Yeah, cement.
What are you minting?
So here we have several texts. I'm gonna get as many as I can here. You can call as well, 615-737-1025. I think to even question this was a mistake after two real practices is insane. And just get another sign of the times, or just another sign of the times. Manning threw the most interceptions in his first year. Josh Allen threw to the defense more than the offense. I think his mentality was what sold him to the Titans. Yes, we know that. And I am not saying they've made a mistake. I'm looking at the percentages, and I'm bringing back to the table what the studies have shown. And I have absolutely stuck by this even the year before they had the first pick, that Thaler and Massey, my guys, that I've never met.
I told you,
one of them won a Pulitzer Prize,
man.
But the study shows over time that your percentages of trading down from the number 1 spot are going to pay dividends. John Robinson did it, and I think it worked well. Now, he already had the quarterback for sure, but let's get a couple other texts in there, and then we're going to play you the clip. This is of Callahan the day after the draft. Jeff, Jackson Dart and another first and a couple of seconds were pretty appealing. Ward wasn't the only unproven quarterback in the draft. Everybody's unproven when you draft him. I don't even think they would have taken Jackson Dart.
No.
That wouldn't have been what I would have done. I would have taken the best players at the different spots where they have too many holes to plug. There's only one way to build a winner, and that is by drafting, and drafting well, something the Titans have not done very well. With this, he goes on to say this: with all of Willie's comments on overall number 1 pick, I remember hearing these same intelligent points before the draft. However, as Stephen A. Smith says, everyone was infected with QB fever again in Nashville. Cam Ward will get better and will likely be a good NFL quarterback, but the real pressure will be on those in on the decision to draft him rather than Ward himself. They will be the ones paying the price with their jobs, and they should be betting the exacta. Amy Adams Strunk has much on the line as well, with longer and riskier Titans future on the line if Ward does not play extremely well or gets injured in a rebuilding year when they had the opportunity to improve this team faster at many positions. So I think what I'm hearing is Jeff is on my end of the ledger.
I think he's on your side.
I'm trying to find the one that really just gave me the business. He said, well, you give the kid a chance.
I don't think Willie's not giving him a chance, but he's bringing the other side of the coin. Like, now that everybody's in camp, and I understand that. Listen, a lot of this, it's 1 week, one day he's playing great, the next day he's not. So it's going to be this yo-yo with both he and Carter. But he's trying to explain, now that these guys are in camp, now that we've heard what is going on with the Giants and Abdul Carter, and we know what's going on here in Nashville with Cam Ward. Not to say that we're projecting that he will be a bust or anything, but just kind of going back on it and saying, you know what, let's revisit this. Would you still, knowing what you know, seeing what you have seen, reading what you've read, would you still make the pick, or would you go the route of Willie and, basically fleecing the Giants for this year's draft picks as well as next year? So not to say that we're saying or Willie's saying that Cam will be a bust.
Right. No, I'm not saying
thinking
that.
about it.
I'm just saying that it's all on him. When you take all these other picks, you have a lot. You don't have to hit on every one of them to have move the ball forward in your ability to get the roster. At some point, you'd have to get the quarterback. I do realize that, and that's not easy. And that was Louis Riddick, one of his points. He says, you don't know how Arch Manning and all these guys who everybody's saying, hey, next year's quarterback class. You want next year's quarterback class. We don't really know how that's going to play out or not. I do understand that, and I believe that, but I like to play the percentages. G from Murfreesboro is on the other end of it. Willie. Remember, this is a quarterback's league. If you think you got the guy, I don't care what's offered. You take him. D-Mace, stand strong.
I am, man.
Also, Willie, who's to say the first and second round picks this year and next year will pan out also? But I've got a lot of chances to get right. It's like the
and you got more
roulette
chances to get wrong.
You play the roulette board in Vegas, which I don't, because it's been proven if you play the roulette board long enough, you will lose. You will lose. But I got a better chance if I got my chips. If I got free chips, I got 4 or 5 chances to win rather than one chance. That's the principle I'm using here. But G disagrees. He said, does everyone remember when Donick wanted to keep rolling it back with the Predators years ago, and that would have ended up being a disaster? Okay, G.
I guess G's feeling a certain way.
And he said there's a reason why the Giants were willing to give all these picks away. They think that quarterback is special like the Titans do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's fair. Now, you know who else agrees with G? Brian Callahan. Now, this is what he said the day after the draft. Now, pay attention, because I went nuts when he said this.
The offer that the Giants made sounded pretty hefty. When did that come along the timeline, and was there a temptation at that time?
Yeah, I think we went through the process the correct way. We considered all things available to us. As far as when and where and how much, that doesn't really matter now at this point. But those conversations, those offers, we did our due diligence, and ultimately we just felt like Cam is a player that we weren't going to let go anywhere else except here to Tennessee. So we arrived at that consensus. It took a lot of work to get there, and I don't think at any point since we made that decision, there's really wasn't any conversations past that. I said it before that I think when you have an opportunity to add a caliber of quarterback like Cam, those things are priceless. There's no price you put on that from draft capital standpoint, because those players end up being what you think they're capable of. Those picks don't matter when it comes to future picks and draft capital, because he's got the ability to be a really fantastic quarterback.
Okay, priceless, and That lays out perfectly
Mm-hmm.
what their thinking was. They were all in lockstep. They all believe in Cam Ward. But you can't know. You can't know. And something that has been brought up many times, he was not in the caliber of prospect by the consensus evaluation by many. And you have to be willing to say, as you're the Titans, everybody else was wrong. But he was not a Joe Burrow or Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck. You know, there are certain guys that are considered, hey, this is the 1-1. This is clearly the best prospect in the draft, and he plays quarterback. Cam Ward was not.
But and this is where it does make it interesting. With what I'm going to say, it does make sort of football interesting and fun, that comparison. But I think it's unfair to compare one quarterback class to the next quarterback class, because Cam Ward didn't come out last year. He wasn't in the, okay, I'm getting ready, I'm being evaluated,
Right.
I'm getting ready.
And I'm not even worried about that. I'm looking at this year's class, and people had Travis Hunter, they had Abdul Carter, and a few others rated ahead of
but it
Ward
all
as a prospect.
Yes, but it all depends on, you may be ranked ahead of me, but it's what do they need right now?
Oh, yeah.
Because there are only two teams in the top, 4 or 5 that needed quarterback, and that was the Titans and the Giants. Everybody else had their quarterback per se. They weren't looking to get a quarterback. Now, there were some teams below that, 7, 8, 9, 10, even a little bit, that wanted quarterbacks, but they were not going to give up what they needed to give up to get up to that spot. But just because he wasn't evaluated on the same level as Travis Henry and Abdul Carter doesn't nullify him as a quarterback. He was the top ranked quarterback out there this year, and he would have still been a high first round pick. He still would have been a top 10 pick. Had they passed him on and say just took Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, the Giants would have taken Cam Ward. So he still essentially would have been a top 5 pick. So I feel good that the guy that I'm drafting, now that I'm looking at it, because before I didn't really care. I'm drafting him. I don't care if you would have drafted him or not. But hindsight is 2020. Yeah, I'm not the only person that wanted him. There were other teams that wanted him, but no one wanted to. There was one team willing to move up to get him, but other teams would have taken him and would have been satisfied with getting him.
Yeah, and with Travis Hunter, we know the Jaguars gave up a lot to take him. So there's a lot riding on whether Travis Hunter does well.
And Travis is.
But that's why I'd rather be the team taking the extra ways to go about it. I want the extra picks. That is the time-tested measure of success that has been, I don't want to say proven, but statistically shown. Your probability is better by trading down and getting extra picks. Who is this? Texter Tex. I would have taken the trade. The roster is in shambles. Even the brass knows it. We need more players and not projects like Femi, too. Talking about Oladejo.
Okay, so
by the way, he's impressive.
Yes.
When you watch him walk around the field, I can see why people are like, wow, look at this guy. He stands out with his physique, et cetera. But you have to be a good football player as well.
So, okay.
I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah, and I'm hoping it works out well. A buddy of mine, texted me today and says, he's from UCLA. Well, he went to UCLA. How's Femi's doing? I'm like, he has a chance to start. He's doing well. They have high hopes for him, and rightfully so. But, I mean, who's to say that, okay, if you'd have taken those picks, who's to say that you try to get your quarterback next year and he fails? Or who's to say that, okay, we took Cam this year because our roster isn't as good, we're still going to have a top 10 pick or a top 7 pick. So we can essentially still get an elite player next year, all while having a quarterback now. Or we can say we're a top 3 pick. Okay, we want to trade out of this. We still can get a team that may be looking to get a quarterback now. So essentially, you may end up getting that same deal that the Giants presented last year. You may end up getting that same deal or even slightly more this year if you end up with a top 3 pick.
That is probably what their answer would be as well, is if Ward is good, you could take now how good?
Yeah.
I don't know. But if they have a top 10 pick and there are good quarterbacks out there, they might be able to wheel and deal and get extra picks that they would have gotten from the Giants last year.
Now you become
but I think you would still have that. You would because they would have been poor this year probably because they wouldn't have the quarterback.
Who's to say that?
So you'd have 2 firsts and 2 seconds that then you could turn into more or move up or down to get the quarterback.
Again,
I still think you have more capital in the bank already.
Yeah, I get it, but
you just don't have the quarterback.
But who's to say that next year's crop? Again,
we don't know. There's no guarantee for any quarterback.
You're basically rolling the dice at the table and saying, all right, we're going to bypass this one, and we hoping that this next quarterback crop is all right. So you roll the dice. You either going to crap out or you're going to roll 7s or 11s. Which one are you going to hit your number? I get because you have more chances at the roll, you may end up getting more good players, but also you may end up going broke too. End up on a 30 for 30. And how you chose to, bypass this quarterback, Cam Ward, to get all these picks. And now look where you are as a franchise. I mean, we've seen franchises like that where they spend all the money on a quarterback trying to get him or didn't and wanted the picks. And they end up on a 30 for 30 because their team has been in a rut for, X amount of years.
Another texter texts, every level, Cam has gotten better. Give him time. If he came in lighting it up in camp, I would have been skeptical of the defense. I would have brought this up even if Cam was lighting it up. I don't think it's a factor right now where Cam is, but I think it's a good time just to revisit what they had in front of him and ask yourself as you look at the entire roster, what was the better play? And did their emotions get the best of them by putting all of their eggs on Cam Ward? Because there is so much riding simply on whether he is the man or not. You'd have had different ways to go about it. When we come back, we're going to play you a couple of clips from John Robinson's discussion with Chase and Big Joe. It was quite interesting. And we'll go back on some of the decisions he had to make as a GM, including the trade of A.J. Brown. That's coming up next here on DVD 102.5 The Game. Do you have an A.J. Brown clip you can play here, David?
Well, I'll start with a simple question. We're sitting here today having this conversation. You've had a lot of time to reflect the last couple years and everything. Why do you think that we're sitting here today and that you're not at training camp?
I guess probably if I could have bought some mulligans, like before the golf tournament, you can pay for those mulligans. I probably would have bought a handful of those. I think at the end of the day, let me first lead off with I'm extremely appreciative of Amy, of Kenneth, of Barkley, of the Adams family for taking a chance on a hayseed from West Tennessee and giving me an opportunity to do what. That's not the ambulance coming for me, by the way, guys.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah.
Why is that ambulance two-tone blue?
But I'm extreme. I mean, they certainly changed my life and my family's life for the opportunity. But at the end of the day, I was charged with managing decisions as it related to on the field stuff, and I didn't do my job well enough at times, and that's what happens. And again, certainly some things I would love to have back. A lot of things that I'm extremely proud of that we were able to do in my time there. But that's the way it goes. There's only one perfect man that ever walked this earth, and none of us will ever be that. But our purpose is to strive to be like him as much as we can.
That was John Robinson, the former Titans GM, talking with Chase and Big Joe. A long sit-down conversation. We're going to go back through some highlights and hit on some of the big decisions. We just got done with several segments of probably the biggest decision that Mike Borgonzi is going to make. It's going to define how things go. And that is Cam Ward going to be worthy of the first overall pick? Because we know for a fact that he had the option of doing what John Robinson did when he first became the GM, and that was take the number 1 overall pick and trade down for the different assets he got with the Rams. And we do always point out when we make that comparison that John Robinson came in already having Marcus Mariota as the quarterback. So he was not in search for the quarterback. So that does make it different. But I think John Robinson gave himself some good runway and some good ability to build by making that trade. So here's a guy, that's been through it. We have gone back and forth with all of the decisions that he made, the big ones. I think he made more good decisions than poor decisions. His winning percentage was very good. But just like a lot of GMs, your time comes and goes. So I thought that was interesting perspective from him.
Yeah, I think it was. It's him, the way he came into the NFL, at least not in the NFL, but I'm talking about the Titans under the circumstances. He came into it in a way that not many GMs come. He came into a situation where this team had already went to the playoffs. They were a year removed from the playoffs. The previous season, they were in the playoffs, and they won a game inside the playoffs. So he wasn't coming to a team that was depleted of good players to potential stars. He had those guys. So when you talk about, making that decision when you're the top team in a draft, well, a lot of it depends on how your roster looks. And, do you come in with success or do you not come in with success? And his roster, and then they drafted Marcus. And Marcus, Marcus was not great, but Marcus had his moments.
Right. And Marcus was drafted by the previous GM.
Yeah. So
Rustin Webster.
Yeah. But he came in and Marcus was sort of established in a sense.
I think he's shown enough.
Yeah, he had shown enough.
So
they didn't have to spend the first pick on the quarterback. So they were able to, like you said, accumulate those picks, help strengthen not only the top end, but the bottom end of your roster. So he was able to benefit from that. And he had a good run of 4 or 5 years. But because of the things, obviously, and we don't want to go back because it's not about the things he didn't do. But eventually it sort of wore thin. And then the next guy comes in and they got to deal with the same problem. So when you are in a position like this, it's about, again, how do we get to our destination the fastest? Is it by giving up on the first pick, taking the other picks and building it that way? Or is it by drafting a quarterback, believing what you've seen with your eyes and what you scouted and analytics, believing that he is our guy and we just need to build around him?
Now let's get to another major decision that he had to play, that he had a part in, and that was the trade of A.J. Brown. I think everybody listening to the interview was anxious to hear what he had to say about that. And do remember that John Robinson, he is doing media this year. He has been on some NFL Network broadcasts I've seen. He's going to be out there more, but he still is somewhat limited in what he can say because he's still under contract. And so there is an agreement, I think, that goes with that, he got fired, etc. But here's what he had to say about A.J. Brown and the decision to trade the talented wide receiver.
John, in the spring, you had a great 21 season, go, the number 1 seed. I know it hurts losing the Bengals. You go to the 22 season, you get word that A.J. Brown is going to ask for a new contract.
Here we go, Joe. Right out of the gate.
Sorry. You knew. How did that start? And then the negotiation, and then once that happened, did you have to run it up the flagpole and say, look, our receiver wants an extension. What do we do here?
I brought gauze and Band-Aids, so if you cut me off, I'll mend up. No, yeah, that's a topic everybody probably is tuning in to hear about, and I can't as I would love to give in the details. I can't go into the details on it, but there was just a lot of discussion that went into that decision. Ultimately, it was my responsibility to make the decision, and again, if I had one of those mulligans, I would probably do that. And that's nothing against Traylon or anybody else, but I think AJ's went on to have a great run. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of where he's at, and what he's been able to accomplish. But sure, I mean, in hindsight, if you had a do-over, I mean, I'd be an idiot to sit here and say, no, I'll do it again. Like, no, you'd do it different. But we made the decision that we made, and then, the rest is what it is.
When you say, if you can't talk about it, I understand it. When you say we, who is we?
Well, anytime you make a decision, right, it's collectively as an organization, there's a lot of people involved, right? It's not like, it's like when the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator, when they call a play on Sunday, it's not like they're shooting from the hip and they're like, I'm just going to run this play, even though you haven't practiced it, you haven't talked about it, you haven't watched it on film. Like, you go through every scenario with the organization, and it's the same thing in roster building. It's like you're going through, your free agency stuff, you're going through trade proposals, you're going through draft prep. And you talk internally and you meet, and you come up with scenarios. All right, we can do A, we can do B, we can do C. And as a team, and I think I said this at the press conference after we made the move, it's like we collectively we made a decision to do this, and that's what we did.
So that is the comments on AJ Brown, and you can tell that there are things he can't get into. But one thing that I think is pretty apparent is when you compare that to what Brian Callahan and Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker, they were all very, very sure that Cam Ward, it was the right decision to take him with the first pick. I think you could sense in John Robinson. Now, the complicated thing about A.J. Brown was the market was changing for wide receivers. He wanted to get a big raise. And philosophically, that was something they were going to have to tackle. They were going to have to tackle that. So when he was saying you can do A, you can do B, you can do C, I think, you can go through what those would have been. A would have been, let's give him the money. B might have been, let's ride it out for another year. He's not happy, but he could still be on the team. We got a good team. Remember, they were just coming off of the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
And C was, let's see what we can get for him in a trade. So those were the things that I'm sure they kicked around for a long time as AJ was doing his thing with, let's go public. Let's go hit some baseballs over here. Let's go make a little noise over there. Let's make it clear that I'm a rising star and I'm going to get paid, even though here in Nashville, we were saying, yeah, he's really good, but he missed some games. He's, his stats don't jump off the page at you. So it was, but there's no history is showing how big of a decision that was.
Of course. And now when you're sitting, in that other seat, watching it from, 10,000 feet, you see that, man, if I had an opportunity to do that over again, I think everybody.
He used the term mulligan.
Yeah,
right?
Everybody. It's no secret. It's not,
and
like
it's easy now.
Exactly. It's not like you go to John and ask that question. He said, man, I think I would do it over. And then you go to Mike Vrabel and he was like, nah, I think I would have stayed with doing that pick. No, everybody that was in that room, if they would say, no, I wouldn't make that. I wouldn't do that again. Because time has shown very quickly that was probably, well, not probably, that wasn't the right move. And these are moves that are going to always be on your resume. And whether it's fair or not, because ultimately, who has the decision to make the trade? But it's always on the resume. And John he even alluded to it, like, it's my decision. I got to make it, and I got to own it. We got to own it. We all got to own it. But more importantly, when they talk about that, they say John Robinson. They mentioned John Robinson's name. The Titans are in there, but John Robinson was the GM. And to everybody, it's like, he's the one that made the call.
He took ownership of that, but I think it's clear that everybody would love to know.
Like, what
did Amy think? What did Mike Vrabel think? What, you saw the body language of Mike Vrabel. We did see that. We couldn't hear what he was saying, but you could tell that he was troubled. So here's more on what John Robinson said today, looking back on the A.J. Brown trade.
Yeah, and I think one of the worst things on draft night is the camera inside the office. I don't know why that's approved. I'd never have that happen.
Content, Joe. Everything's content, baby.
John, in the spring, you had a great 21 season, go, the number 1 seed. I know it hurts losing the Bengals. You go to the 22 season, you get word that obviously we saw the reaction that Mike Vrabel had. How much discussion did you have with Mike about what was going down? How much headway did Mike know that was happening draft night? Because his reaction, John, was really telling.
Yeah, again, I would just say we collectively we made the decision that we made, and
yeah,
that's a group decision.
Okay. So Joe was thinking the same thing we were.
Yeah.
What about the camera? Oh my God. I think the answer tells you some things there.
Yeah.
Or the non-answer.
And
tells
again,
you
he
some things.
can't, because if he answers that, then he's gonna have to answer another question. He answered
Right.
that, so he kind of leaves it vague. It's like, hey, it's the decision we made, collective decision.
The collective is the fallback. Isn't it ironic that they're using the word collective when his successor, Rand Carthon, was lampooned all the time by talking about collaboration, a very similar word to collective decision.
But
right?
aren't you supposed? Are you or are you not supposed to be
Of course,
collective in
yes,
your decision?
you are supposed
regardless
to be.
of if you don't 100% love it, if you're a part of the team, it's like, okay, if this is the consensus, if this is the collective, then okay, I may not like it, but I'm falling in.
Joe Rexroad's going to join us at the top of the hour. We'll see if he has some thoughts on this and a couple other subjects. Looking forward to talking with Joe. We'll have more from the John Robinson interview, some other tidbits on his long discussion with Chase and Big Joe earlier today. You're listening to 102.5 The Game. Don't forget, 102.5 The Game and DVD. We're broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service.
Derek Mason here, and if you injured yourself in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers for a free case evaluation. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible, or better yet, nothing at all. Law Tigers make sure you get the compensation you deserve and doesn't get paid until your case has been settled. They understand how much your bike gear is worth to you and will get you all repaired, or better yet, they will replace it. Law Tigers is the resource the motorcycle community turns to when in need. So whether it's to support you at an event or if they see you broken down on the side of the road, with Law Tigers, you never ride alone. You hear that engine? I hear it. So you never ride alone. Call 1-800-LawTigers.com. Or visit their website at lawtigers.com. That's Law Tigers, which is powered by Freeman and Fuson, and is located in Nashville at 2126 21st Ave South. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
I love offensive linemen. In 18 and 19.
No.
I watched Isaiah Wilson at Georgia. I would have picked him in 2020. At what moment, John, did you think to yourself and maybe to Vrabel, like, we got a problem here with Isaiah Wilson? Did Sam Pittman lie to you? I don't say that as a joke because
he wants to fight Sam Pittman.
What the hell happened? And when did you realize we got a problem with Isaiah Wilson?
Yeah, Joe. Again, you're wielding the knife again. I won't get into all the details on that one. Just say that that was a COVID year, right? Yeah. And I think that it got shut down on us in mid-March,
right?
And it's not an excuse. At the end of the day, it's my job to pick the right guy, and we weren't able to kind of do our full process, and to liken it to a T-ball game, like I don't even know if I hit the tee. Sometimes there's a T-ball game, the kids will swing, hit the tee, and then the ball falls down. I don't even think I hit the tee on that one. So,
but he was great at Georgia. I watched him. I was like, I would have picked him. I think it was a great pick. What happened afterwards? That's why I would have never do your job. I'm not doing that. You can't. Yeah, is that one that keeps you up? Like,
there was a lot. There was stuff with that one that I can't get into details on, but yeah, it was. It's like the how do I frame this? I guess they have those dating apps now where they have the picture of somebody and you click on it. I've never been on one. I wouldn't know how to go on one. I don't want to go on one. I love my wife. And it's like I picked the dating app and I thought this was showing up and
the person didn't match the picture. It was kind of weird.
Yes.
The wrong person showed up.
Right. Did you? I'm not saying you still talk to him, but is it one of those?
No.
Do you still no? Do you still no?
Boy, it was like pulling teeth to get him to, and I understand why, but he was trying to give you the answer without giving you the answer. Again, this was one of those deals where I think there were a few teams probably, during that time drafted a guy, whether it be in the first round or the fourth round. And they thought, man, if I had just a little bit more time to truly evaluate this player, or they would have played the whole season, I would have gotten a better, sense of who this person was or who this person is. So I'm sure, John is not the only guy, but because, sort of, the way he lost his job and sort of the reasons, some believe why, you highlight stuff like this, the missed picks with Isaiah, and Caleb, and you go down a list of guys that didn't work out, but then there were guys that did work out.
And I was going to start by saying that we're going back through the John Robinson stuff because I think it's the most compelling thing to see if you can get some perspective, however limited he is and what he can say. But I still think you can tell with the tone and the emotion that goes into the answer. He knows as well as everybody listening that those were the defining moments. But at the same time, he won 61% of his games when he was the GM of the Titans. That's hard to do. But the three drafts, 20, 21, and 22, is what derailed him ultimately. But we should point out that they won a lot of games in 2020 and 2021 without anything from their first-round picks.
Yeah.
They didn't make a first-round pick in 2020 or 2021, and they still won the division both times and got the number 1 seed in 2021. So they were doing a lot of other good things, or they had done some other good things to build the roster to that point. It's just a shame that they couldn't sustain it any better than that. But he did say something that I thought was interesting, and that was, he said, I don't want to make an excuse, but it was the shutdown, right? And it did affect how you would evaluate your prospects. It was the same for everybody, but it's just amazing how south that went. It's one thing for a guy to not be as good as you thought he was going to be, a first-round pick. But for him to essentially never get on the field was astounding. And you can tell he's still shocked by it, still scarred by it.
Yeah,
he talked about Joe wielding the knife.
It's unfortunate that is the case, but you run into things like that. I think as a GM, and what sort of magnifies it or what doesn't help is the circumstance which you were under while picking that guy. And again, it's not. Because when a question is asked, all you're doing is giving answers. You can just flat out say, "Yeah, I drafted him. I should have." But there's no nuances in there. Yeah, we know you drafted him. We know you shouldn't have now, but why did you? And what made it difficult? Well, COVID made it difficult. We drafted him because we saw some things there the previous season. And because we were not able to attain all the information that we would usually have, we made a decision based on the information we had in front of us.
I would have loved to have known what the tactics were that the Titans used that year compared to what everybody else decided to. You could never have gone back and said, well, this is what we did in 2010 or the last time we had a pandemic. Nobody had ever lived through a pandemic.
No.
And it was so new at the time. And the draft was, the draft was pretty close to happening. So you had to make some quick decisions. And I do wonder, with the limitations that you had and you had to be creative of how you would try to continue to do the best evaluating you could under the circumstances. And I just wonder how their process was compared to other teams that maybe ended up having success. I wonder what teams that made successful picks in 2020 would look back on and say, this is what I think we did right when we had to make tricky decisions that nobody had ever had to deal with before. So really compelling stuff from John Robinson. We certainly appreciate him coming on our station. Great job by Chase and Big Joe to get him to talk about that. When we come back, we're going to talk to Joe Rexroad. We'll get his thoughts on some of these topics we've hit today as we've gone back in through the what if. We've also got a ton of texts on some of the things that we have been tossing around today. We've got some passionate listeners, which we appreciate. So we've got the third hour coming here on DVD. This is 102.5 The Game. And don't forget, Souls for Souls is sponsoring a promotion we've got going right now, which is Souls for the 615. Help a child in Middle Tennessee step into the new school year with confidence by donating $20 for a new pair of athletic shoes. And so this is the goal. Souls for Souls is sponsored by oh, wait, hold on. Here's how you do it. Let me just get this important information out there. To get the info and donate the $20 for a new pair of athletic shoes for a youngster, visit thegamenashville.com/shoes. Souls for the 615 is what it's called. It's sponsored by Macero and 12 South. Go check them out for handcrafted cocktails, bold plates, happy hour, and elevated hospitality. All right, let's talk Loan Pronto. Remember, Loan Pronto has the ticket for you, and that is the ticket to use your home's equity to your advantage. If you're a homeowner, your home's equity is yours to use. So you can get cash to do whatever you need with it. If you need cash to consolidate your debt or do a home improvement project or anything else that you can put your mind to, you can get on better financial footing and get done what you need to get done by using Loan Pronto and their rapid equity loan. It's a great, great tool for you that many, many people have used. They've got nearly 2,500 five-star Google reviews. They're A-plus rated by the BBB. We're talking about Loan Pronto. So call Loan Pronto right now for a free instant home appraisal. See how much cash you have available to you to get out today. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781 on approved credit. and MLSConsumerAccess.org. D-Mace, Ving, and Adonic. Final hour of the show today. Willie Donick, Derek Mason here with you. Adam Vingan on vacation. He'll be back with us on Monday. We are pleased to be joined by Joe Rexroad. Robbie and Rexroad in the mornings. Joe speaks all the languages. There's so many directions we could go with Joe with this interview. We're definitely going to hit on what's going on with Tennessee, but of course, I'm just looking at his page on The Athletic. We could talk about things that I know he's very passionate about, which I know Joe wants to. Well, I wasn't going to bring up the gout. I wasn't going to go there. I was going to bring him a 128 team NCAA tournament for basketball because I know that's what he thinks is best for the game. Just joking, obviously. I'm with you, Joe. I think keep it at 68.
I say you invite everybody, Joe. Do we have Joe?
Do we have Joe?
I thought I had him.
Or is the gout acting up?
He's on.
Hello, Joe.
Hey, Joe. Yeah, Joe, you need to fix your phone, Joe.
I'm so sorry. I had myself muted. I'm sorry. I had myself muted.
Oh, my goodness,
come on, Joe.
Man.
That's usually a problem for me in the studio, and apparently
I'm also happy to report, Joe, that none of your belongings appear to be in the studio today. So you didn't leave anything the last time you were here.
That's good. That's all right.
Okay.
I'm on a roll then.
You're on a roll. Let's hit you with the topics that we've hit on today because I'd love to get your take. We were revisiting what we know about what the Titans passed on because they felt so strongly about Cam Ward. You know, just detailing what the Giants offered, what they could be sitting with, and we got a huge reaction from the audience. It was very mixed. Some were saying, and we tried not to make it about how he's done the last couple of days in practice because to me, that's not the issue. It's just sitting here on July 31st.
Right. Do
you still feel that they made the right decision? So how do you think about that when you look back on it?
Yeah, well, look, I'm not changing from, and I'm with you. I think, obviously, whatever. If you ask this question and he has like a great couple series in a preseason game, maybe that changes some answers, right? But I'm not any different for me. I just don't think that he's going to be a number one overall pick level quarterback in the NFL. And I'd love to be wrong, but based on, I've seen nothing that changes my mind. The only thing that's going to change your mind on that, or the other way around, if you do believe, to me, the only way anybody is going to have their mind changed is once we actually see him play in the NFL and to me, play for an extended time in the NFL. But based on that belief, I definitely think that they should have traded out of there and gone that route, with building, building, like you said, well, getting those picks, getting the opportunity to really load up. And, look, if I also agree with anybody who says, well, if they have the conviction that that's who they think he's going to be, you don't have those opportunities. And any time, this year they might end up picking 10th or whatever, right? So, I understand, the argument of, well, if you believe he's a guy, you have to take him at 1. That's fine. I don't think he is. So it's always, until my mind has changed on him, my mind's not going to be changed on that. I think they should have traded down.
The other thing that I think we know a little bit more now than we did back then is there were some questions, legitimate questions about Abdul Carter's health with the foot and the shoulder. And it appears to be a non-story, at least today.
You're right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the thing. Obviously, the Giants were the primary potential. It wasn't like there was, but from all accounts that we have, it's not like they were getting presented with these unbelievable, oh my God, I can't pass this up offer. That happens when the quarterback at the top of the draft is Cam Ward. It doesn't happen when it's Joe Burrow or,
correct,
some of these. That's right. He is in this particular year the top quarterback, but not all top quarterbacks in every year are created equal. But that's the thing too. It's like in some years you could get an outrageous haul for that pick, but so in those years, unless you are great at quarterback and you're really happy with what you have there, like the Titans in 2016. Titans in 2016, they thought they really had something with Marcus Mariota. There was no reason to dispute them at that point. He'd only played 1 year for a terrible team, but it looked promising. So, of course, they're going to trade out, and Goff was enough of a draw. I mean, Goff was a more coveted prospect then than Cam Ward was this year, right? So, sometimes it's a totally different haul that you're bringing back.
Speaking of 2016, John Robinson was on with Chase and Big Joe, an extended conversation, and he couldn't get into all the details, but they hit on all of the topics, right? And he referred to he would love to have mulligans, just like any GM would say. So I'll put it to you, Joe, if there was one mulligan that you could take if you were John Robinson and you could wave the magic wand and make something different, which one would it be? Because they hit on all of them, right? This guy made a lot of great decisions and won a lot of games while he was the GM. So with that in the context.
Yeah, I wish I could be like less obvious, but I think it's the AJ. Obviously, you have the 3 straight first-round picks that are just completely fails. And yeah, first of all, I thought it was a great interview. I thought those guys did a really good job. It was awesome of him to hang for an hour. I listened to the whole hour. It was really good. For a guy who, look, we all know he signed an NDA, right? Mm-hmm. We all know he signed a non-disclosure agreement. We all know he's still getting paid by Amy Armstrong. So, like, there's just limitations to what he can say and stuff. But I thought he still was as revealing as you could hope. His answer on Caleb Farley to me, it was like he was talking about how the bad luck for Farley after drafting him. But it's like, well, I would go back on that one and say, man, there was a lot of red flags, and some teams had him totally off their board. But to me, the mulligan is A.J. Brown. And if you just don't do that, if you make that work and you sign him, just like Mike Vrabel expected was going to happen, I think like they expected all through the process until it broke down at the end was going to happen. Well, that next team wins the division. Now, I could argue they probably win the division even if they don't fire John Robinson mid-season, right before the Jacksonville game. But either way, with A.J. Brown, I mean, I could make the case, guys, that just that move, even with the other things that have chipped away at this roster, I could argue that like Vrabel and Robinson might still be here if they just hadn't done the A.J. Brown trade. It's just so hard to know what other, then you get into the butterfly effect of what other things do or don't happen off of that.
No, you're right, Joe. I mean, we can go back and we can play or do revisionist history. But one move affects another move. We can say, well, we'll take back the A.J. Brown move, but then how does that affect everything else, good or bad? Moving past the if you don't make the trade for AJ. Now, looking at this team now, Joe, I'm sure you've been out there. What do you make of it? Because the first 2 days in pads, they were lackluster. The second day was better than the first day, but we still, there were still the issues, whether it seemed like the lack of energy or just the miscommunication with the quarterback and his receivers. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I was out there the other day, and it was the Cam Ward especially rough day. Mm-hmm. Well, look, I defer to you on. I'm not going to lie and say that I thought I was like alarmed or like I was really struck by the lack of energy, but I defer to you, someone who has been out there, for many years and knows how the Predators go. I mean, I feel like the execution was lacking. I guess to me, when you talk about lack of energy, one thing I notice is like there's a lack of volume out there, and maybe that has nothing to do with energy. But like in so many past years, Kerry Coombs was a guy who like you would always hear that voice, right? I mean, Vrabel, you would always hear that voice. It does seem like this coaching staff is kind of quiet by comparison, so maybe that's part of it. But you know what? To your point, D. Mace, I mean, he just added a padded practice on Friday that was not previously on the schedule. So I'm thinking he might agree with you, right? Like, yeah. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that he's going to be like, you know what? Let's add a day of full pads work if he was happy about everything that was going on out there. So, I guess I would say, along with the coaches, maybe sometimes you don't. It just seems like kind of a more of a quiet coaching staff. You probably need some more guys, some more players to emerge and bring that energy. I mean, Paul Karski was on our show today, and he was like, sometimes that energy is like when people make plays, right? Like a big play will get a practice going, and like they've just been so off the mark, and the defense has been winning handily. But also, we know that Jeff Simmons is going to go out there, make plays, talk about it. Maybe they need some more guys to kind of find their voices out there too, and just not start fights, but like just get a little bit chippier out there.
Yeah, and that has not happened. And listen, it's not the end all be all. But when you're sitting out there in practice, and you've experienced it before, whether you've experienced the laws in practice or you've experienced consistent high energy practice, I knew something. It just felt off. The first day of practice with no pads felt off. There was no energy. It just seemed like there was not enough. And like you said, it could be because of the lack of big plays. It probably is, because yesterday, Mason Kinsey makes a nice catch in the end zone for a touchdown, a contested catch, and Mason Kinsey and a bunch go crazy. You may be right. They need more of that stuff to happen. But, I mean, you got to be able to have that even if that's not happening. Because, to me, it happens because you have that energy. So you fall into plays, you make plays, because one side seems to be more amped up than the other. But that's just my, sort of synopsis of it in a sense. But the Will Levis thing, because we haven't had you on, I've listened to you talk about it. But this whole Will Levis thing, the shoulder injury, what do you make of it? Because to me, I'm not saying that he didn't need the surgery, but man, oh man, if you know your body well, you should want to do the surgery on the front end rather than wait until right before camp starts and then have the surgery. I know you're doing it because you want to be healthy, because you know that next year is your free agency year. Well, you won't be on this team next year, but that's a decision to me that should have been made a lot earlier.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, we even and we're talking today about the picture he put out.
Well, let me say something, Joe. I have the same. I can do the same thing with my shoulder that he did. I have that little thing protruding up out of my skin. You can see it a little bit under my
through
skin.
Your shirt. Yeah.
You know how many games I missed? And I'm not a quarterback. I get it. I'm not a quarterback. But I think I missed a game. But I don't do what Will Levis does. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, but that's also because of an injury, right?
Yes. I was injured.
You couldn't have done that before the injury.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
So it's like Kaharski was on. Speaking of Kaharski, I hate to keep bringing him up, but he's on there telling us that he thought that Levis could do that anyway, and I'm like, I don't think he could, man. Like, I don't. So, but apparently last year at some point, talking to reporters, Levis did that, kind of showed it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like to your point, it's like as soon as you have that injury, you can do that. But I'm with you. Like, I just the timing of it. It's just like if it's that real and that, like, I guess to me, like that obvious that you're going to need it, why not do it earlier? Like what is good for him for going out there and toughing it out and meeting with his QB coach, Jordan Palmer, and all these things. But it's like, it just seemed to me like it, in retrospect, it was inevitable. So why not? And also, I mean, you had to know if you're him, like you're not going to have a legit chance to compete. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe he thought he was, and then it kind of became reality to him. Like, yeah, I mean, they're just all in on Cam Ward. But to me, it's like, as soon as that pick is made, you have to know you're an afterthought, right? Like you might be the backup, you might be able to compete for that, but you're not legitimately competing to start there anymore. So yeah, to me, it's like have it right then. But I do feel like at least like even that picture to show the severity, at least the idea that I think because some fans I heard were like he wasn't even hurt, he was out throwing, he's fine, this is all BS. At least that's been kind of has kind of faded away, which is good because I think some of the conjecture about him was a little bit extreme.
Talking to Joe Rexrode from The Athletic, and of course, co-hosts with Robbie Stanley, Robbie and Rexrode every morning on our station here on 102.5 The Game. So, Joe, we kicked this around. We got a pretty good reaction with Jeffrey Simmons changing agents. After this year, his contract will clearly need to be addressed in some way. The roster where it is. If a team offered the Titans a first-round pick for Jeffrey Simmons right now, would you do it, or would you need more?
Man, that's a great question. Oh, my goodness. You know, that's a really good question. How bad is the team?
Well, that's a very important question, right? Because we hit this yesterday. If it were during the trade deadline that you address this, then you're probably dealing with teams that are probably not going to be picking very high. You're dealing with teams that are trying to load up for a run, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be probably
exactly.
a bottom 15, bottom 16 pick. So there's a big difference, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I'd still think I'd really strongly consider it. It's funny though. Like this week, I said this on our show the other day. The biggest thing, obviously, we talk about Cam, and Cam's the whole focus, but the biggest thing that struck me watching them the other day was Simmons and how much he slimmed down and how quick he looks to me and how quick his feet are. Like he is, and if he really hasn't sacrificed much power while slimming down and gaining that the quicker first step, I do feel like he might be on his way to just a monster year. And of course, that kind of times up with everything that, like you said, Willie. I mean, we're talking about a contract. We're talking about maybe he could be trade bait. So so let's say he it does pay off in more sacks. I still say Jeffrey Simmons could be an all-pro and have 5 sacks in a particular year at his position. You know,
right?
But of course, if you get 10 as an interior, then that's another level still, right? So, I mean, if that's the case, you know, you could almost see where all of a sudden a first-round pick, is that enough? You know, I think with him, it's like I just don't think he's been the same player since 2021. I think that the injury he played through in 2022, I think that's had a lasting effect. But this, I think, is the exact right move for his career. This is the move, is to try to be a slimmer, a little bit more of a pass rusher and see where that takes you. And he's still one heck of a football player. So I haven't given you an answer. I mean, I think I probably would because of the state I'm in, and I still I still have to see him play like this in an NFL game and show that he's kind of back as a top player. I think I would probably take that pick. Just because the money, and also, you know, obviously he's not getting any younger. I think for this team where it is, still quite a ways away from being really good, I think I'd do it.
I'm curious to see if that becomes a national story, because you know how when you change agents, there's a lot. If you start getting this out there across the league, because it hasn't been a story yet, right? But that could create some buzz. If and Jeffrey Simmons, of course, hasn't said one word about it to this point, but you know, he didn't come to some of the voluntary workouts, and he has slimmed down. I think he's got his eye on another contract, right? He wants to get one more big sum of guaranteed money.
Yeah, and you know, another thing, I really do think, look, say what you want about Jeffrey Simmons. I know that at times he hasn't been a great leader. At times he gets too into the social media or gets too mad at media people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? I have never had any question that this guy is about winning.
Agreed.
And I think he hates losing about as much as anybody. So I also, along with that new deal, you know, I could see in the back of his mind too, man, I need to get out of here and get someplace where I can win again.
That's a good point.
I want to win. Yeah.
All right. Before we let you go, Joe,
that.
Quick thought on what's happening with Boo Carter in Tennessee. You probably have looked into it a little deeper than D. Mace and I have. We can look at it from afar and say, you know, we've seen situations like this, but the inner workings of it seem a little complex here of how we got to this point.
Yeah, I'll say that not that long ago, I might have said, man, I don't think they're going to have him next year. and that would have been devastating to lose your quarterback and then to lose. He's one of their top. I think Robbie said the other day he's like one of their top 3 most talented players. You know, he's a guy who, and when you look at their issues at receiver, I still don't know if I buy that he's going to have this huge role in offense, but I do buy that they were serious about it because they need to come up with more playmakers. He's certainly a huge part of the defense. So right now, my take on that situation is I mean, they have dodged a huge issue. And there's some things that have at least some conversations, and he's back there. So that's great news for them. Now, will that continue? Obviously, he missed some stuff. There's different stories out there about why he missed stuff. Bottom line is, Heupel has made clear, like, he is involved in the leadership committee. There's going to be some consequences. But the fact that he's in camp is a huge, huge deal. I mean, this team, again, already with the QB play, I'm looking at like 9-3 would be a great outcome. You take Boo Carter off the team. I know it's just one player, but like they just don't have that many playmakers. I mean, I could see that being another loss or two. So I think it's a great development. It's going to be really interesting to see if it's quiet now for the next couple of weeks, and it's just like, okay, he's back, he's in the fold, he's doing all the stuff he needs to do. I think that's a big, big question and storyline as they move toward the season.
Joe, outstanding stuff. Thank you for spending a few minutes with us today, and have a great weekend. And we'll be listening tomorrow.
All right, boys.
All right.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, boys. Take care.
Joe Rexrode with The Athletic. Despite the false start with the mute on the phone, got some good stuff out of that.
That's what he's known for, so it's good to have that.
It would only be Joe.
It's just Joe being Joe. That's all it is.
That's all.
All
Gotta
right.
love him.
All right.
Gotta love him.
When we come back, we'll go back through some of this stuff, and we're going to hit some of the texts that we haven't gotten to today on where do you stand with the decision to draft Cam Ward, and are you having any second thoughts or buyer's remorse on not taking the package of picks from the Giants, or anything else you want to weigh in on? Remember, our phone and text line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Stay tuned. We're coming back. Hey, tune in to ESPN 94.9 The Fan today as the Sounds take on Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Wilkes-Barre. Got to make sure I get that right.
Wilkes-Barre, yes.
Yes. And the Sounds have been struggling a little bit here. They got to get going, get the bats going. Pregame begins at 5:20. First pitch is at 5:35. And, of course, the Sounds lineup could be shaken up because the trade deadline for Major League Baseball is about 3.5 hours away. So the Brewers have had a fantastic run. They are playing great. So what will the Brewers do? That will be something I know is on Jeff Hem's mind when he calls that game. So make sure you tune in, 94.9 The Fan, or the Game Nashville app. Why have I saying that? I've never been to Asheville, have I? I know it exists. I don't think I've been there. Coverage is available on the Game Nashville app and thegamenashville.com. Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. We're talking a lot about a couple different things today. We've got a lot of people that have weighed in on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. You can call us as well, 615-737-1025. Willie Donick and Derek Mason here with you. We've hit on basically three things. John Robinson's long sit-down interview with Chase and Big Joe. We just hit, again, what we hit on yesterday around this time that got a huge reaction. It is, should the Titans be considering trading Jeffrey Simmons if they could get a first-round pick? Would you do it? And then thirdly, we are kind of looking at the buyer's remorse. Do you have any? Are you still thinking that they've made the right move by drafting Cam Ward and not taking the picks that the Giants offered them? So we got a lot of people weighing in on at least one, if not more, of those topics. And Chad, in our last segment, we asked that question to Joe Rexroad, said, if someone offered a first-round pick for Jeffrey Simmons, I'll personally drag him to the airport if I have to.
Again, it just depends. What do you see, or how do you see Jeff in your future? Because honestly, this is his last big contract. And I'm sure it will be, if it's with the Titans, it'll be an extension added on to the final year. So it'll probably end up being 3 to 4 years. But if you're looking at it from the standpoint of, we need to maximize Jeffrey Simmons' potential for us to acquire, a lot of assets. If we're going to do it, we need to do it now, because he's at his highest peak right now. So if the Titans are thinking from that standpoint, then you make that decision when you're in the season, right before the trade deadline. How does your team look? How are you competing? How does the teams in the AFC South look? How close are you to the team that is leading the division? How far are you out as far as games in the playoffs as you sit right before the trade deadline? If you feel that you are basically out of it, you may be looking to better your team, in a way that doesn't involve Jeffrey Simmons in the future, which means you're going to trade him. Or you can look at it and say, okay, we need a guy like Jeffrey on our team. So we're going to redo the contract at the end of the season, going into next season, and we're going to count on him to be that guy he was 2 years ago and to help us get where we want to go. Because my thing is, if you can get 2 more years out of Jeff, 2-3 more years, really 3, I think that sets you up perfectly as you're entering into your new stadium, because you have no veteran guys. I know Monty Hooker's back there, but that's another guy that may not be here next year. You have Monty Hooker, but he's like the really only veteran guy that has been with this team, Yeah. So losing a guy like Jeffrey Simmons is not like, losing Byard was big, but they still had some guys sort of there. Derrick Henry was still there. Ryan Tannehill was still on the team. But if you release Jeffrey now, where do you go for your leadership? even though people do question the leadership. But where do you go from it? Where do you go to when you need it if he's not there any longer?
I've used the term land of opportunity for a lot of different things, starting with the wide receiver room, but I think that's another land of opportunity. You're looking for leaders to emerge with this group. Robert says, I wish J-Rob were still here along with Vrabes. That's for what it's worth. Some people like hearing from John Robinson. That is interesting. Others said John Robinson. I didn't really hear anything that answered much. He was a little hamstrung there. Weston Hermitage says John Robinson basically went on air and told all of Nashville that Isaiah Wilson catfished him. And I can't unhear that. It happened to us.
We got catfish.
Yeah. His term was, it was like, he says, I don't do dating apps, but he said the person on the dating app, just because talking about COVID, it was during COVID. So he's like, the person on the dating app was not the person I thought it was being. So he said somebody else showed up. It's kind of what happened. I don't think it was exactly how it went down with Manti Te'o, but it was.
But it was a Manti Te'o sort of.
The end result was Isaiah Wilson was not a football player.
No, he was nowhere based upon what they thought and what they actually got. He was nothing close to it, and he said it in so many words.
He did. He didn't use the term catfish, but,
but
it did come to mind.
He said he got catfish. He got hoodwinked, man.
Let's go to Bob on our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Bob, what's going on?
Hey, guys. Actually going to address two of your points. I'm just curious if they had decided to take the haul that the Giants offered them, which meant they knew they weren't getting their quarterback this year. I think they would have traded Simmons because you weren't building for this year. You might as well get something else. So you'd actually gotten the haul plus whatever you could get for Simmons. I think with them deciding to go with Ward, that's why they decided to keep Simmons.
It's a dilemma because you know your roster is so thin and you know you're going to be taking a big step back if you trade somebody as talented as Simmons.
Exactly.
The other part of it is his stock is not as high as it otherwise would be because he's been nagged by significant injuries the last couple of years. So it probably is not quite as easy to drum up. But that's what we really don't know is have they privately shopped him around at all just to gauge what the market would be?
I'm not sure that you can do that, honestly, right now. I'm not sure you can do that because, I mean, it eventually gets out. It's going to get out that Jeffrey Simmons is being shopped. Whether somebody on his side is going to say it or somebody on the other side, it's going to come out.
I think if you're not doing your job, if you're not looking at it, I think with him changing agents, I think it's only a matter of time. I think before this comes up.
I think the best course of action for the Titans will be let people start calling them. Let people start calling them because then now it's better if you call me than I call you because now I got the player that you want. If I'm calling you before you call me, then you feel as if what? Oh, I can get it for a little cheaper here. I have to ask for as much. But if you call me, then I'm like, oh, you really want him, huh? So you really want this guy. So how about, this hypothetical. How about 2 first-round picks? I'm sure they would hang up the phone.
Right.
But if you said, give me a first-round pick or something else, they'd probably, okay, we can talk. We can talk. So
I think that would be the question is, would it just be a first-round pick or are you looking for more? Obviously, you would take it. If they're calling you, you don't negotiate against yourself.
Exactly.
But if it ends up being it's Simmons for a first, is that worth doing for the Titans? I think that question is going to sit for a while. Eric made a wisecrack on the catfish thing. Said she looked like Janet Jackson in the picture. Came out of the car looking like Freddie Jackson. Eric in Buffalo. Eric doing damage from Buffalo. Let's see what else we've got here. Joey from Bellevue. Leadership. Winning a championship should want to bring out the best of everyone. But that was a point that Joe made that I hadn't thought of is privately as Jeffrey Simmons sits and looks on the horizon when he is, one thing I agree, Jeffrey Simmons plays hard.
Yes.
He may not be the best leader, but he plays hard. He plays hurt.
He wants to win.
He wants to win. And so from afar, privately, as he talks it over with his new agent, is he going to prioritize playing for a winner? And how does that factor into the contract part of this? Because it's one thing to say, hey, Jeff, you're a great player. You've got one more big payday, and we need to take full advantage of this. Let's use the leverage you have. But does he also say, well, if that's in Tennessee, great. And if it's not in Tennessee, that's great. But does he also say, well, if I'm going to stay with the Titans, I want to make sure I know that this team can win. Am I going to be around here long enough to see the next great Titans team? I don't know.
It all depends on how the offense look. And that's truly, I'm sure a part of it. How does the offense look? And I think that's what everybody, management included. If you see some progression and you feel that you can go out and make this team better, then you're going to do the things necessary. But the whole, trading Jefferson, that has to be, because when you make that move, man, you are signifying to everybody that this is a rebuild and we're trying to get as much as we possibly can to help our young quarterback succeed.
Hair Metal Henry on our text line says, let's just wait until Dallas really stinks on the defensive line and Jerry Jones will make a ridiculous offer.
Yeah, he may.
I can't rule that out.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Also on the text line, Steven says, did the Titans keep the number 1 pick because they knew Levis's shoulder was totaled and needed a quarterback by default? I think they were moving on from Will Levis, good shoulder or bad shoulder.
Yeah, I don't think he was in their plans to be a starter this year or next year or the year after that.
Let's get to Chris on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
All right.
Well,
hey, I think with this discussion, it really don't matter what they did, whether they took the trade with the Giants and got the extra picks or took Cam like they did, or even trading Jeffrey Simmons. No matter what they did, this was always going to be a rebuilding year. Now, if they took the picks from the Giants, there's no guarantee that next year's number 1 pick would even be in the top 10. So there's no guarantee you could get one of the top quarterbacks next year. So it all would have been a gamble.
You cannot control what happens with the Giants. I think you could play the percentages. To me, it's all about the percentages. There's nothing that you can know about any deal. You don't know how great Cam Ward is going to be. As much as you believe in him, you can't know. But what you can know is that you have an increased probability that somebody is going to hit for you. If you have an extra first or an extra second round this year, an extra first and second next year, along with your first and second, you have way more picks in the top, at least 60 picks, if not the top 50 picks. And that is how you can make your football team better. It's up to you to make those picks work.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know if any of those guys are going to be quarterbacks or if the quarterbacks are going to be worth picking. But you have those picks and you can get assets for them. It may take some time because I think, as you just said, it's a rebuild. So when you're rebuilding, you have to know that it may take some time. It's not all going to fall on the line. But they've put all their eggs in the Cam Ward basket, for better or worse. And we all hope that they've got their guy. When we come back, we'll have our final segment of the show. We've got more of you weighing in on our text line and our phone line, 615-737-1025. Stay tuned. Coming down the home stretch of DVD next.
I love offensive linemen. In 18 and 19,
No.
I watched Isaiah Wilson at Georgia. I would have picked him in 2020. At what moment, John, did you think to yourself and maybe to Vrabel, like, we got a problem here with Isaiah Wilson? Did Sam Pittman lie to you? I don't say that as a joke because
he wants to fight Sam Pittman.
What the hell happened? And when did you realize we got a problem with Isaiah Wilson?
Yeah, Joe. Again, you're wielding the knife again. I won't get into all the details on that one. Just say that that was the COVID year, right? Yeah. And I think that it got shut down on us in mid-March,
right?
And it's not an excuse. At the end of the day, it's my job to pick the right guy, and we weren't able to kind of do our full process, and to liken it to a T-ball game, like I don't even know if I hit the tee. Sometimes there's a T-ball game, the kids will swing and they'll hit the tee, and then the ball falls down. I don't even think I hit the tee on that one. So,
but he was great at Georgia. I watched him. I was like, I would have picked him. I think it was a great pick. What happened afterwards? That's why I would have never do your job. I'm not doing that. You can't. Is that one that keeps you up? Like,
there was a lot. There was stuff with that one that, again, that I can't get into details on. But yeah, it was. It's like the. How do I frame this? I guess they have those dating apps now where they have a picture of somebody and you click on it. I've never been on one. I wouldn't know how to go on one. I don't want to go on one. I love my wife. And it's like I picked the dating app and I thought this was showing up and
the person didn't match the picture. It was kind of
yes. The wrong person showed up.
Right. Did you? I'm not saying you still talk to him, but is it one of those?
No.
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 We can answer that one. No.
Yeah, no.
Sean Robinson, nice enough to join Jason Big Joe. I love how Joe couched the question. It's like, I would have drafted Isaiah Wilson. I watched him play at Georgia. Like, kind of making him feel better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I want you to feel comfortable saying what happened.
It may have been bad, but
very interesting answer.
We would all do the same thing. Yeah.
But that was the catfish reference we made before. We said, I thought I had the right guy, and the different guy showed up. Isaiah Wilson, somewhere in here. And I'll tell you what, D. Mace, I remember we had an interview with Isaiah Wilson a day after the draft. I don't care how smart you think you were at the time. There was no indication from his past or what you heard from him that he could have been that bad. Mm-hmm. There are all kinds of busts in the history of football of first-round picks that didn't work out or went really bad quick. And sometimes you can look back and say, yeah, Pac-Man Jones, yeah, he did get into that fight with the pool cue, and there was some trouble signs there. That was a risk. Isaiah Wilson didn't have anything in his past that would suggest he just didn't want to play football or had all of the issues that he had. It really literally was like a different guy showed up. And of course, the COVID thing contributed because maybe you didn't get as much insight as you wanted, and maybe that would have taken you in another direction. But that is a what if that also that, as John Robbins said, the theme of the interview was, I wish I had a few mulligans to go back. And he was nice about that because he could have been a little more defensive and said, hey, man, we won 60% of our games when I was here. Let's not act like I was a total idiot. But he owned the big decisions that have him sitting with Chase and Joe and not over at the offices right now.
Of course. I mean, he understands that there were things or decisions made that ultimately caused, him to be dismissed from his duties, whether he may have agreed with it or not, whether we may have agreed with it or not, it happened. And because it happened, now this organization sits in a space where they're struggling and they need something or someone to help them, build this team or help build the morale of this organization, because right now you have had what, 3 losing seasons in a row, and you can't continue down this path, regardless of what has happened in the prior years. And go back and listen to that interview. It was a great interview by Chase and Big Joe. It was about an hour. I think it started at the 10 o'clock hour. It said it started at the 10 a.m. hour and went all the way until the 11 o'clock hour, which we then came on. But it's a real interesting, even though he can't say a lot, you can hear it in his voice. And if you're paying attention, he'll tell you, he gives you the answer without getting you the answer. Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. So it's a good interview. But regardless of all that, this organization has to find a way, and they believe in their minds they have, by choosing to draft the quarterback number 1 overall in Cam Ward and not go the route of, as many suggested, including Willie. Take the picks and build that way. Not to say that I'm not saying either way was wrong or is wrong, but it's just, okay, do we see it faster with the quarterback, or will it take a little bit longer if we go the route of having 5 or 6 picks or 8 picks and being able to, have a better shot at hitting on at least 1 or 2 because I got 8 or 9.
The theme of our show today is basically, how did we get here? It's a little history. How did the Titans arrive here? With the history of the John Robinson interview, we went back through all of the things just to remind people of what they turned down in the decision to draft Cam Ward. How do we feel about that? And then one going forward is the Jeffrey Simmons now. Now that they are where they are, what should they do with Jeffrey Simmons? And let's hope that, as Joe Rexford pointed out on our show, he's in really good shape. He has dropped some weight. He's changed agents. There is a divide in his contract. It's time to address his contract after this season. So it will force decisions to be made. So what's the right decision with where the roster is, with the new stadium open up in 2 years? Mm-hmm. Is he going to be a part of the next really good Titans team, or are they better off getting assets for him, something they did not do with their last great player in Derrick Henry? Mm-hmm. They got nothing for Derrick Henry. Andy on our text line says, I feel Jeffrey Simmons is hitting his prime. I would try to re-sign him. Let him rush the passer, some from defensive end.
Well, that's what they're trying to. I think they're trying to, move Jeffrey around now that he's a little bit slimmer.
That would be interesting to see. I'm curious. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they're trying to sort of like how Kansas City does with Jones. They move him around. JJ Watt. Houston did it with JJ Watt for many years. Because you're so dominant on the outside and you show the versatility, we could put you on the outside and get you a matchup problem. That's what they're hoping with a slimmer, quicker, but still has that strength type of Simmons this year. They're looking, because they couldn't generate. They want to be able to, as much as the Nerd Wilson, that sort of attack, blitz from every angle, confuse you. As much as you do that, and it may be successful at times, there's nothing like, ask the Philadelphia Eagles, there's nothing like getting to the quarterback, or Kansas City. There's nothing like getting to the quarterback with 4 or 5 guys.
There's no substitute for that. None. The best Titans defenses, they had that.
Exactly.
They had that. Everything else was the gravy or the supplement to the base. If your base is, I got a blitz to get to the quarterback,
yeah,
you're
living on borrowed time. Really,
you're living
like
dangerous.
Teetering. But if you can only rush, if you say, I don't have to blitz, I can get the quarterback with 5 guys. Wow, just think of the things you could do in the back end.
Yes,
with your secondary.
Tomorrow morning, the Titans will practice. That was not originally on the schedule. Brian Callahan has adjusted the training camp schedule, so they will be out on the field in pads tomorrow. So we will be keeping a close eye on that. And our show will be based around that. It'll be Friday. We'll have all kinds of things for you. We'll have Ask D Mace. And so we'll be back with you tomorrow at 11. ESPN Radio is coming up next.
Be love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, wonderful Thursday. Stay cool because it's hot out there. Peace.